Hi everyone, welcome to week number 4 and your critiques from assignment number 4. So this week I wanted you to start working with depth of field and lighting in your images and use them to help communicate whatever it is that you want to convey to the viewer. So in our first group of images from Shannon, we've got a textbook with some homework here. And I think there's a couple really good things here that Shannon has done that helps exploit the use of depth of field and also the use of lighting in this image. So first of all, we've got some pretty heavy side lighting, so the light is coming from the upper left-hand corner of the frame. And what this is doing is it's showing us all the texture in all these little pieces of paper and in the pens and in the book. And in doing so, it's giving the image a really deep sense of dimension in this photograph. So in other words, it looks very three-dimensional. You know, it feels like the front of the book here is much closer to the viewer than the back of the desk or the curtains in the background. And in doing so, it very much exaggerates the size of the book and also the feeling that this homework or whatever's in the book is really overwhelming, or that it's a huge task for her to overcome. So I think spot on everything in this image. I think this works great, and you've done everything as I'd like to see it done in this image. So good job with this one, Shannon. Your second image here is an image of a tree, and you are silhouetting it. And I think from a technical aspect, you pretty much nailed the backlighting and the silhouette and the depth of field in the image. Perhaps I would consider maybe lightening this photo up just a little bit, something like that, because it does kind of get a little bit busy and a little bit caught up in the middle there. And the one thing that I think we can bring to the table in a photograph like this is some additional element that helps our eye land somewhere in the photograph. The issue that I'm seeing here is that I don't know really where I should be looking in the picture. You know, do you want me to look up here, or do you want me to look down here or over here? Or where is it, and what is the focal spot of this image? And as I talked about in the module, when we're using that large depth of field, you want to use a compositional strategy that somehow draws the viewer to something in the photograph. So as I'm brainstorming here and trying to think of ways to improve this image, perhaps, you know, maybe a silhouette of a bird up in this area would cause our eye to kind of work through this image and go here. Or maybe, you know, we've got in the background the moon or the sun or something like that that draws our eye to this spot rather than having it kind of explore the whole frame here. So think about having a landing spot for our eye in these photographs. And it's especially critical when we do have that large depth of field, because our eye is going to all these different areas that are focused rather than the one area that's in focus, as would be the case with a small depth of field. So again, technically, I think you nailed it. Just working on getting that extra area of interest in your photograph that will take our eye to a specific place in the image. So good job here, Shannon, and look forward to seeing your work next week. So in our next group of images, we have Sarah's photographs here. And one of the things I really love that you did here, Sarah, and I'm just going to share it with the rest of the class, is that you did a screen capture of your settings on your camera. That definitely helps me along in looking at your information. And I think for the rest of the class too, that that's a helpful thing. If you go ahead and look at that camera data, it will tell you a lot about what's going on. And the more you get used to working with this information, the stronger you are going to be in mastering that technical aspect of photography. The other thing I really loved about your reflections is this sentence here that you wrote, and I'll just read it to everybody. I liked the unfocusedness of the image. The fact that the subject is the mirror is an interesting commentary if you really want to get deep about things. So to answer your question there, or answer what you posed to us, yes, I really do want to get deep about things. I want you guys to think about photography as a means of personal expression rather than sort of, this disposable snapshot, take a quick picture with your iPhone. I want you to really think about your images and what they say and what they communicate to the viewer. So I love the fact that you are thinking along those lines and you are, as you put it, getting deep about things. Excellent. So in this image, what I think is pretty neat here is also having this plug here, because without the plug, we might not really quickly know that this is a mirror, and the unfocusedness or the blurry aspect of it might be kind of challenging for the viewer. But I think this immediately signals to us that it's a wall, and then by extension a mirror, and the picture of you is actually a picture of you in the mirror. So I do think that is really wonderful. Mirrors are always great in images because they kind of add another layer of depth to a photograph, and you can see here how this image is almost, we've got this layer here, and then this layer here, and then you there, and then the windows in the background, and then it all kind of comes circling back to the ground here that's in the foreground. So this photograph has that wonderful three-dimensional quality that we like to get in our images. So good job on that end of things. Again, the biggest thing here is that you're out of focus, but I think the fact that it is in a mirror makes it work a little bit better than if it was just you standing there in the studio. So I think we can live with that out of focusness, and maybe that kind of challenges the viewer to wonder a little bit more about you and why you're sitting there, and kind of explore that frame. So good job on that end of things. Your second image, we've got this little pocket of light that's falling on the dance floor. And again, I think your reflections are really strong with this assignment. And you say how it offers the viewer an invitation to fill that space. And that's exactly it. We want to look at this image and we imagine people dancing in there, or imagine all these bodies being in there. So I think you're spot on here. Great job with the large depth of field. I think you nailed that aspect of it perfectly. If we were to just maybe finesse this image a little bit, I would suggest just making that window of light stand out even more. And one way we could do that is by adding a new adjustment layer, and we would be doing a levels layer. And then when you get this window down here, just take this middle slider, and if you notice, if you push it to the right a little bit, the whole frame becomes a little bit darker. And then if you push this one over a little bit that way, the darks become even that much more darker. And then if you push it this way, it becomes a little bit lighter. And I think that just gives it a little bit more pop and a little bit more snap in the image, and we can see kind of a before and after. In the before, you can see it's kind of gray, and we don't really see that much of the detail in the floor, especially in the wood. And then with those adjustments, we kind of bring out all the details in the texture. And now what I still start to really see here is all these little lines where the boards are warping a little bit and where there's that texture in the floor. So again, it adds a little extra value to the image. So great job here, Sarah. Love what you're doing and love the more thoughtful, reflective approach to image making that you are taking here. Great job. Okay, next on our group of images we have Kaya's photographs, and we start out with her small depth of field image, and she presents us with a wonderful bottle of Belgian ale. I don't know, Kaya, if you are trying to blackmail your professor here, but certainly the thought of enjoying a Belgian ale on a Sunday afternoon is something that would appeal to me. I like what you're doing here. The small depth of field certainly brings the attention directly to that bottle of ale. One of the other things that I think works really well here is that you're kind of picking up some of that blue light. I don't know if it's the light from the outside or just some room lighting, ambient lighting that is giving off a blue cast to it. But whatever the case is, the image sort of has that contrast of the sort of dark, cool, cold feeling that we would have outside versus the very warm, almost like we've got sort of yellow, amberish tones going on in the foreground of this frame. So I think the contrast between the two very much communicates the idea that you expressed in your reflections, which talks about just being able to enjoy a bottle of ale on a Sunday afternoon and kind of having it as a kickback day. So that all works for me. Maybe if I was to do anything, maybe cropping out the snowboards on that side. But again, that's probably a minor thing, and because there's so much out of focus, my eye really isn't going to them too much. Again, if we were to just kind of pull in a crop here. Oops, sorry about that. Pull in a crop, something like that. Maybe that just gets rid of that. So, just a thought. Good job with that one. And then your second image, your large depth of field. Again, I love the fact that you're working sort of these foreground background relationships, and we've got the plant with all of its greenness to it, and it's full of life, contrasted with that very cold, snowy outdoor scene. I think that works really, really well. The one thing that you did in this image that I'm not entirely crazy about is you used a flash here. And again, if we go to your file info and check out your data, it says your flash fired here. And what the flash did here is it's kind of making this plant in the foreground look very flat and kind of bright and washed out. And it looks out of place with this sort of ambient light that is going on outside. You nailed the idea of the image, the concept, everything going there, but the flash, I think I just would have loved to have some more of that beautiful ambient light, which is just the natural light that would be on in the room. And if it was too dark where the plant was, maybe just bring in one of your table lamps or something like that to just illuminate it slightly from the side. The problem again here with the flash is it throws these bad shadows directly behind the plant, and it looks confusing, it flattens it out, it washes it out, all kinds of crazy stuff like that. So for the most part, I'd love to see you guys all avoid using your flash unless you really, really have to use it, or unless there's an assignment that specifically calls for it, which off the top of my head, I don't think we have any assignments that we really get into flash. So other than that, I think you've done a great job here, and you pretty much nailed all the technical aspects of the assignment. And next on deck here we have Grace's images. And your first image is a small depth of field shot, and you use the letters to spell out health, and we've got all of the medicine and vitamin bottles in the background. This really reminds me of an image that you would see as a stock photo, or you would see it in a magazine ad that would be talking about health or wellness or something like that. So I think you've nailed everything here. Small depth of field, absolutely. The words health stick right out, and those bottles in the background are out of focus. We know what they are, but our eye isn't being pulled insanely by it. Our eye goes to those words health, so it works perfectly. I would suggest, and I've offered this to a couple students already, just doing a new adjustment layer in this image and going in this case, just taking our left slider, our right slider, and just pushing it in towards where the bottom of that histogram starts. And you can see that kind of gives it just a little bit more of a snappy, punchy look to it, and just brightens it up a little bit. So there's the before, there's the after, and I think you got it there. The other thing that we should point out for everybody is whenever you put words in a photograph, people are going to read those words. So be careful, because in this instance, the words health is exactly what you want to convey. However, if there was some other writing in this photograph that you didn't want to communicate, be aware that the viewer is going to read that writing and the eye is going to go to it. So make sure everything is communicating the same thing in your photographs. So good job there. Great shot. And your second image is a large depth of field. We've got some backlighting from that light behind the flag. Technically speaking, I think you nailed it all here. The one thing about the lighting, it's almost a little bit kind of on the scary side. And I don't know how that translates into the viewer's experience. Might be interested in hearing what some of the other folks in the class have to say about it. But technically speaking, we've got the trees in the foreground in focus. All of the flag is in focus, and I think our eye really is directed towards the flag here nicely also. So again, all of those things are working in perfect harmony. Yeah, I like the shot, and I think it has sort of that very nighttime moody characteristic that works really well. So good job here too, Grace.